Hello and welcome back. This is Business English back again with our next lesson. Whether you like it or not, English is the global language of business, and any multinational companies use English as the common corporate language. This means that if you want to work in a company or a top company, it's likely you will need to be able to speak an appropriate level of English. So, in my course, today we are going to talk about how to write a perfect CV. In this business English, you will learn how to use it to get a job, how to use it to keep a job, how to progress in your career. So the first lesson here is, in this lesson, I am going to talk to you about how to write a perfect CV, also called a resume in American English. Let's begin. Writing CV in your own language can seem like a big task, but writing one in English can seem impossible. Now, what should we do about this, right? With my help today, you will leave today's class with the skills you need to write a CV that will stand out and get you the employment that you deserve. Number one, let's start by asking ourselves, what does a recruiter want from a CV? A CV does not get you a job. What a CV actually gets you is a job interview. And it's so important that you remember this when you write one. Applicants often feel pressure to fit absolutely everything into their CV, when it's often considered better to prioritize and highlight just a few things. It's claimed that employers look at a CV for around 7 seconds. So when you're writing one, you should keep in mind some of the first things that will jump out at them are mistakes. So, I have seen some CVs and also I have gone through many of them. So you see, spelling is something you should keep in mind. I see spelling mistake, and that is absolutely not an excuse that you should have in a CV. You need to check it over until you know word by word, off by heart. If you struggle with the language or spelling in general, then you absolutely must get it proofread and checked over by someone else. If you don't know anyone who can do this for you, find a proofreader online and pay them for their time. It's an investment into your future. The next thing that recruiters look for are skills and experience. The relevant skills and experience, with the key word here being relevant. That needs to stand out. It's likely that they will be scanning or skim reading your CV, rather than reading everything on it. Later on in the class, we will talk about tailoring your CV to make it relevant. Finally, the recruiters will try to find out a bit more about your personality and character. You can't show so much, but you need to show enough to get you through to the interview stage, where they will try and find out a lot more. We will also talk about showing a bit of character later on in the lesson. So now we should ask the question, which type of CV should I write? There are two main types of CV, the chronological CV and the skills-based CV. There are some other types, and we will discuss those in this segment also. It's important for you to choose the right type of CV for the job that you're applying for and for your own circumstances. Let's talk about the chronological CV. As the name suggests, this type lists your experience and achievements chronologically, starting with the most recent. So take a look at this example and see what we can find on a chronological CV, right? Yeah, you can see here it's 2005, 2008. Look at all the numbers given here. You can use this type of CV to show how well or how quickly you have progressed in your career or in your studies. It's also a good show off, that you have a continuous employment with no gaps, which we will discuss in a later segment. Now let's talk about the skills-based CV, which is also known as functional CV. This type shows off your skills and personal qualities as opposed to the history of employment and education. Underneath the headline of each skill, you can write the roles in which you achieve them and develop them. Take a look at this example. Andrew Thomas, design skills. I was in charge of designing social media posts for my department during my time at Microsoft. And look at the next one. So you can use this type to mask any gaps in the employment, or if you have any kind of gaps, you can just say the internship, you can give a volunteer work. So the best part of this CV is that you have a much more opportunity to make it relevant to the job you are applying for. Another option is to use a combination of hybrid of both CVs, where you can stick to the conventional chronological order, but you emphasize the skills developed within the role. Another short CV, which is becoming more popular, is the creative CV. So what does it do? This is all about presentation and can help you show off your design, and you can stand out from the crowd. So using infographics is also, it has a lot of information and it's engaging. You could also consider a video CV, which can be a good idea for customer facing roles or an add-on to a traditional CV. Academic CVs, for those applying for research posts in academia, they're usually much longer than other CVs. And recruiters are more likely to spend longer time reading them. These should emphasize your education, research, publication, and experience. Finally, we have the technical CV, which is much more directed towards IT roles. Alongside all the traditional information found on a CV, you will need to highlight your technical skills, such as programming language, systems, and platforms. So which CV is the right one for you? So you can just, choose and the perfect one for you. Let's discuss the tailoring of CV. The biggest piece of advice that I can give you is tailor your CV to each job application. Work on creating a CV template and then create a separate CV file for each individual company. If 100 people apply for a role, which is not unrealistic, and only 10 people get chosen for an interview, is a one-size-fits-all CV really going to be in the top 10% of all the applicants? You want the recruiter to see your CV and think, wow, this person could be a perfect fit for our company. By tailoring your CV, you are showing that you are proactive and motivated. It takes time and effort, of course. It also shows that you are not just applying to 50 roles in the hope of getting one back. Now let's address the fourth part, which is gaps in your CV. Recruiters don't want to see long periods of unemployment, but sometimes circumstances can't be helped. So gaps are red flags, of course. They can suggest that you were fired or that you quit. And employers want you to work hard and stick around for a long time. You really need to minimize their impacts. Here are some tips and things that you can do. Use your summary statement at the top of the CV and, to briefly and positively explain why you decided to change roles. For example, after spending 5 years in the finance industry in 2017, I decided to change career paths. Another thing you can do is use a skills-based CV, as we discussed before. If you have got loads of gaps and you can't explain them, you really should consider ditching the chronological employment timeline. Lastly, you just need to prepare to talk about it during an interview. Even if you don't list the gaps on your CV, you might be asked about the inconsistencies in your work history, and they need valid explanations, of course. We'll talk about this in the lesson on interview questions. If you are in a CV gap at the moment, start doing something immediately. You can get some relevant freelance work, start a blog, take a course. You can refer to this if gaps come up in interviews. Now, lots of people ask if they should ever be creative with the truth. And I think you should absolutely not. You need to sell yourself, but you don't want to lie. Bear in mind that they will call your references, and if they find out that you have been exaggerating or lying, you will be at the bottom of the pile. Another thing you want to do is keep it short. As a rule, 2 sides of A4 maximum, but if it's feasible, I would recommend keeping it to 1 side of A4. Technical and academic applicants may need more. If it's longer than 2 sides, they just aren't going to read it at all, and they might miss out on important information. They could even get a bad vibe from you. You could also consider including URLs to portfolios, especially for applicants in the creative industry. You can use a link shortener to create a memorable link. This is easily copied or typed into a web browser. Don't depend on it, as they might not look at it, and make sure the link works on all platforms. You also need to make your CV look smart. Always submit it as a PDF file. It will work with all operating systems, and the format will stay consistent. You could consider making your CV fancy and adding a layer of design. My last tip is make sure that you use the right language. In another lesson, I'm going to show you the weak words you should avoid using, and strong words you should use instead. Right, so that's all for today's lesson. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something. I will see you in the next lesson. Click for the next video.